Today, the Supreme Court seems skeptical about Trump's bid to try to take control of the independent Fed. That's something no president has ever done. Remember, this has been a losing battle for Trump because he failed in a plot to immediately oust a governor there, Lisa Cook. She's staying on the job as the case is reviewed. So status quo is Trump losing. She even attended today, along with the other target at the Fed, Jerome Powell. They're part of these enemies list probes that are increasing, as you see on your screen. Now, when you look at the questions by the judges, a majority did sound skeptical at times. Here are two Republican appointees, and I'll explain what you're about to hear. Alito notes the Trump attack on Cook was so thin, they don't even have a lot of evidence of it in this record. And this is for things she did allegedly before Trump put her in the Fed recently. Like she's under the Fed under this Trump administration, so it might also just be too old. And then Kavanaugh, when you hear his question, he's sort of skeptically describing Trump's dream power here as far-fetched, that a president would have no review or process or remedy and thus could fire anyone on a board that's supposed to be independent from White House control.
You began by laying out what you claim to be the factual basis for the for-cause removal, but no court has ever explored those facts. Are the mortgage applications even in the record in this case?
There's no judicial review, no process required, no remedy available, very low bar for cause that the president alone determines. I mean, that would weaken, if not shatter, the independence of the Federal Reserve that we just discussed.
Shatter independence? Bad. That's if you just shrink down the way judges ask questions. And those are Republican appointees. Justice Sotomayor also pointed out that the way Trump is positioning this would, if they won this case, it would just shred a century of precedent.
112 years, and it's unprecedented that any Federal Reserve officer has ever been removed. So the unprecedented nature of this case is a part of what the president did, not what Ms. Cook did.
That's a fact. This one might be different than other places where Trump has seized powers, partly because the economy and its independence can feel something like a Jenga board. And it's not clear the justices trust Donald Trump to pull 1, 2, 3, or all the Fed's board members out with whatever his agenda is. And that's before we keep track of whether he knows the difference between the Federal Reserve and Goldman Sachs, between Greenland and Iceland, and the various things you have to keep track of in a job like this. NYU law professor Melissa Murray is here, and MS Now legal analyst. Your view of this argument today?
So, Ari, I have to say, I thought this was pretty weak sauce from the conservative justices on the court because they have given this president a pretty wide berth, allowing him to remove a lot of other members of independent agencies. It was a little bit like that point in Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, when Victor Frankenstein has created this monster and then realizes that maybe the monster is going to kill him and everyone he loves. That's kind of what I saw from the conservative justices. They've set this in motion. They've given this president unfettered authority. He has removed a commissioner of the FTC. He's removed a member of the National Labor Relations Board, and on and on and on. And they've allowed him to do it. But suddenly the Fed is different because the Fed and the independence of a Fed is absolutely integral to the stability of economic markets, as we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks. And so it seemed like this court trying to put the genie back in the bottle, but it's out.
Well, you're calling BS on how they let Trump hijack other powers because they might not think they're important. But this goes to the economic system. They are elites. They might not like the idea of that hitting their pocketbooks. I mean, it sounds like
if I the nation more generally.
Or the nation more generally, but the other things hit the nation more generally. I mean, what Elon Musk was doing in cutting people and what Trump was supporting affects working people and poor people sometimes quicker than this. I wonder whether, and I hate to do this, I wonder whether you're bringing a kind of Foucault legal realist analysis here and saying that our court system itself is corrupted by power structures.
So I don't know that I would go that far. I will say.
I knew you wouldn't.
I will say that this court seemed to think that the Fed was a bridge too far today. And they're right, but I would argue the bridge too far happened weeks ago when they allowed this president
so that
to
I think
remove
is
these other people.
However we put it, that's a very fair observation and analysis you provide us with. Having said that, it sounds like you do think they found the line and Trump could lose off today's argument.
Oh, I think he's very definitely losing, in part because the arguments he made were so excessive. So Solicitor General John Sauer, who argued on behalf of the administration, said, one, that Lisa Cook isn't even entitled to an opportunity to defend herself against these charges of mortgage fraud.
Bananas, yeah.
Bananas.
So then you can say anything. I mean,
say anything.
That's McCarthyism meets the Fed.
He also argued that when the president decides that he has cause to remove someone from the Fed, that decision is essentially unreviewable by any court, which means the president basically gets to do whatever he wants, remove anyone, make up any cause, and there's no kind of recourse or check on that. And then finally, he argued that the courts could not reinstate someone like Lisa Cook through a preliminary injunction, which is what happened here, or alternatively, at the end of a litigation, requiring the president through a mandamus or some other means of compelling an actor to do something to reinstate her. And if that's the case, if the courts have ruled that there's no way to actually put their ruling into action, there's no point to it. So he made some very excessive arguments on behalf of this president. And I think this court rightly was not picking up what he was putting down.